So, given all that information, we did something a little unorthodox. We reached out to a paranormal investigator and a team of paranormal investigators to look into Arrowhead Stadium and see if there's any truth to the many claims of curses that have taken place in Arrowhead. With me, I have the Heartland Medium. She did a tour through Arrowhead Stadium with the Kansas Paranormal Investigators. So, the first question I want to ask you is, what made you want to take this job?
Well, you know, our team's always looking for new adventures, new investigations, and ways to help people. And when I first heard about it, I mean, I thought it was too good to be true, to be able to, you know, maybe help the chiefs and get to see the facility as well as do a little investigating.
Unfortunately, the officials at Arrowhead did not allow us to take film during our tour through the stadium, but we do have pictures that we'll post throughout the video. All that said, let's get started and start talking about your walk. When you first pulled up to the stadium and got out of the car and were able to kind of take in the outside of the stadium, explain to me any feelings or thoughts that you had during that time.
Well, as we walked up to the stadium, I had this, my stomach, you know, was very uncomfortable. And that's usually what happens when we go on investigations, when there is a little bit of a negative energy present. And I know that you were, as I mentioned it, you were like, yeah, I'm not feeling so good myself. And so, you know, I knew we were in the right place.
So, as we started our walk, it took us to the lower concourse, and I remember you expressing something to myself. Can you kind of explain what you were feeling in the lower concourse and just let everyone know kind of what was going on?
Well, as we were walking through the concourse, all of a sudden, I just got this little eerie feeling, and I felt like something was shaking, and then the inside of my leg and my leg became very uncomfortable, and as I mentioned that, you looked at me like you knew why I was feeling that way, and I was like, okay. So, was there something in that area?
Yes. Before your walk, I did quite a bit of research into the many curses that people have claimed Arrowhead has, the many tragedies that have taken place in Arrowhead, and when we were walking by that section, I knew that actually someone had passed away there. In 1972, while the stadium was nearing its completion, there was a group of 5 construction workers that were in a crane. The crane turned and hit the side of the stadium and caused it to capsize. The 5 people in the crane fell to the ground and one of them died. We don't know too much information about specifically how that one person died, but it was pretty jaw-dropping to see your reaction whenever you walked by that area and claimed that you could sense something, even though you had no knowledge of that prior. So it was quite extraordinary to me. But that wasn't all we encountered on our walk. In fact, there was much more. So we were continuing our walk, and we kind of were touring some of the suites. And explain to me what you saw when you peered across the field and looked at the suites on the opposite side of the stadium.
Okay, well, I had never been in a suite before, so I had worked my way down to the seating area, and as I looked across the stadium, I saw what I thought was maybe a monitor that was turned on, and beside that monitor I saw a man, and he had either a brown jacket or a brown suit on, and I got a pretty good look at him. Now, when I say I saw him, it's not really I looked clear across the field and saw him. It's the images that appear in my mind, and it was very vivid, and I saw detailed what he looked like.
So you bring up the images, and as we continued our walk, we came to an area in the stadium that had many, many old pictures, historical pictures of Chiefs players, coaches, etc. Tell me what happened whenever you got to that room.
Well, after I saw that gentleman very vividly, I just knew I needed to try to figure out who he was. And as we walked along that hallway that had those pictures, the first picture I looked at, it was him. It was him. And I had told you that I thought maybe he was a coach or something. And when I'm not big on Chiefs coaches or anything, you know, I know the real popular players and things, but I don't know anything about especially past coaches. But you seem to know who that was.
Oh yes, I absolutely know who it was. So the person that she pointed out in the picture was indeed Hank Stram, and one of the reactions I had, you know, whenever I found it was Hank Stram was, you know, he won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. He had a good career with the Chiefs. Why would he be there still? You know, so that's the question I have for you. Why do you feel he's there?
Well, you know, I feel like he had some unfinished business. I felt like, you know, I just felt he was unsettled, just very unsettled.
And it's really interesting you say that he has unfinished business because a major piece of Chiefs history is that Hank Stram was let go in kind of questionable circumstances. So we all know the Chiefs won the Super Bowl in 1969, and then Hank Stram was fired in 1974. During Hank Stram's tenure as a head coach for the Chiefs, only one AFL team had a better record than he did, and that was the Browns. And to make things a little more strange, Hank Stram had many winning seasons leading up to the 1974 season when he was fired. Now, he did finish 1974 5-9, but could you imagine a head coach in today's NFL getting fired 5 years removed from a Super Bowl victory where every season they've had almost in their career has been a winning season? That's kind of unheard of. So I do believe there's some credence to having unfinished business because of a situation like that. Can you kind of divulge a little bit about how maybe firing or something like that may cause someone to stick around or have problems?
Well, you know, I don't know if you've ever lost a job or had to give up something that you really loved. You know, I'm sure that it would stick with us probably way beyond the physical world. The one thing that really helped us figure out who it was, the clothing that the man wore looked like it was from the late 60s or the early 70s, and that's when I would ask you, I said, who coached in that time? Well, you hadn't told me who had coached in that time, but then that's when we saw the picture.
So let's continue our walk, and we eventually made our way down to the field. Kind of explain to me what you witnessed there.
Well, when we walked down the tunnel, and I just was a little anxious. I felt like there was going to be, the field is where I needed to be, where the work needed to be done, and so I was just anxious. We got onto the field, and at that moment, I felt like he had started following us. Not in a bad way. It was more like he was very curious to why we were there. And, you know, I kind of made a little contact with him at that point, and we took a lot of pictures. So I'm hoping maybe, wouldn't it be cool if we got a little glimpse, you know? But it just, the energy on the field was just, there was just so much lower vibrational energy, and it's built up over the years. I'm sure, you know, you've got players out there trying to kill each other, and you've got fans that get really mad when their team loses, and you got coaches yelling at players, and so it's a lot of negative energy that can build up in an area. And so that's what I was feeling, you know, and I'm assuming that's, you know, at all stadiums, but it was very heavy, and it was hard to breathe.
So about this negative energy, were there any things that can be done to remediate that or help with that?
Well, I trained in bioenergy healing, and that's a process where you can move energy. And whether it be in the physical body or whether it be leftover energy. And so I teamed up discreetly with my 9-year-old grandson that we worked together, and we did some energy moving. And you know, I worried a little bit about it being maybe too big of a job for just me. But shortly after we moved the energy, things seemed to be a lot lighter. It was almost like the sun came out and you could breathe easier, and it just like the tension off your shoulders, everything just kind of lifted.
So how many times have you done a kind of like a procedure like this?
Several. And it usually ends up being very positive.
Have you ever had a situation where it ended up negative?
No,
That's
not
good.
at all.
That's good. So, kind of looking at what you did in the stadium and overall how you feel, what would you say to a Chiefs fan who was concerned about the paranormal heading into this game?
Well, I would say it looks pretty good. It feels pretty good. You know, heading into the locker room, energy felt great. Even left a little extra energy there for the players. Hopefully they can pick up on that. And, you know, now we're going to put it in the Chiefs' hands because they're the ones that are going to make it happen from here.
Right on. I like it. Let's do this thing. Let's go to the Super Bowl.
Go Chiefs!